Okay, looks like we are live. It is early, so if I miss you and you come in late, just know that had to get going a little bit early today. I'm still working on a good schedule for the lives. Things have changed a little bit on how I'm working the weekends and how things are going. So I'm working on getting the lives scheduled. They may be a little bit earlier, say this 2 o'clock, 2:30 time period. Maybe the swimming with the pontoon might actually end up on a weekday in the evening. I'm trying to figure out a good schedule. Saturdays, I used to be 7 days a week, literally 7 days a week here at Tactical Pontoon. But in order to maintain some sort of sanity and home life, I'm trying to take Saturdays off. Um, obviously, yesterday I uploaded a video. If you didn't catch that, you should. That was on the Zero Delta, the one, their modular frame here, which I actually still have on the table. So neat. That's a neat kit. Oops, lost a part out of it. We talked briefly about it last stream, but there is a full video up on the channel. If you haven't checked that out, it's a pretty neat video. It's kind of a neat frame. The very modular frame. If that is something that you're interested in, really, it's kind of a neat kit. It's not cheap, like right around $300, and depending on the stock, you're looking. I mean, I waited 9 months for mine. So if it's something you're interested in, the Zero Delta it's not cheap, but then again, if we want something, we'll go for it, right? Anyways, so again, I am wearing a t-shirt from Nordic Nevadan. This is kind of a one-off. I don't think he's going to be offering this full time, but it is the marine digital camo. I forget the technical name for it, but it's a cool shirt. If you are looking for a Tactical Pontoon t-shirt, hit him up on Instagram, Nordic Nevadan, NORDICNA or NEVADAN. Should be a link. I'll see about putting a link. Check him out. T-shirts are extremely comfortable. I've got several of them at this point. The Glockness Monster one is extremely comfortable, and I wear it all the time. So if you want a Tactical Pontoon t-shirt, he's the guy to check out. Now, if you do want one of the Triggered Jedi t-shirts, that is going to be a link on my website. I've got a different printing company that does those. The other thing, he is working on a design for the Leonidas. So if you're running a Leonidas trigger system, and you'd like to have a t-shirt that goes along with that, he's going to be working on that. We've got some other cool stuff actually for the Leonidas. Kind of playing with a couple different things. Got here. I'm actually using this today. This is a coaster with the Leonidas shield on it in slate. This was just kind of this is kind of an early prototype, if you will. It probably going to put some script on it or whatnot, but it's kind of neat. It's a slate coaster with Leonidas symbol. It's pretty cool. Got that guy. Another one. Now, I don't drink. I drink way too many energy drinks and pre-workouts and stuff, but alcohol, it's not my thing. But these little hip flasks are pretty neat. Just something. It's neat to have, maybe on the shelf or something. It's kind of cool. Might do like the Better Call Pontoon design. We may do something like that on the hip flask. We're throwing a couple different ideas around to give you guys some cool stuff to have sitting on the shelf or to actually use. Hey, if you drink, or if hey, maybe I'll throw some pre-workout in one of these and take it to the gym. That could be fun. That could be fun to watch. So just a couple things. We're throwing some ideas around. Maybe we'll do some giveaways eventually. Guns and golf. You need that, huh? Well, we'll see what we can make happen. Um, other things. There's a new sticker design. Now let's Jesse. Oh, okay. Good deal. All right. Did you change your Hudson, right? Jesse Hudson. You must have maybe changed your profile. Okay, okay. Just threw me off there. Okay. Well, I'll see what I can make happen for you, Jesse. Um, if your address is still the same, which hit me up later, I'll because like I said, there's a new sticker design, and I'll make sure that you get one coming your way. Okay, I'll get some stuff coming your way. Um, Here we go. We've got the new sticker design. Um, uh, we all know I'm a geek. I'm a dork, and we did a um, Zack Snyder version of the Knight, the Dark Knight, but I forget the complete blank on. Anyways, it's Batman, but obviously it's me. You know, when he's got the goggles on and it's in the future. Uh, Dude, it's the new design. It's pretty cool. Um, so it says when your Glock needs a hero, there's only one choice, and the next sticker design. I've got another one coming actually. So it's probably a couple weeks out. Um, so constantly churning out new ideas for stickers. If you guys have an idea, feel free to throw it my way. Let's see if we can turn it into reality. It's a lot of fun. What else? There was something else that I was going to bring up, but I can't remember what it is right now. I'm sure it'll come back to me as time goes on. But the other thing that's been going on, the Glock performance triggers seem to be happening again. I've got a couple of them in the shop. I've got a couple more on order. I am still taking pre-orders. I have 2 spots still available. So if you want a tactical pontoon Glock performance trigger, now is the time to get it. I've got 2 spots open. The thing about the Glock performance trigger is it is a single stage, basically a single stage trigger. It's kind of Glock's version of the Timney trigger. The Timney trigger is garbage, but it is really light. They fix that with a couple different things. One, there's an actual trigger return spring built into it instead of that little joke of a spring that Timney sends. Now the thing is, hey Christian, what's up? And we got Scott washing his edge. That's a vehicle, by the way. He's not washing his razor blade. Well, good to have you here, Scott. And obviously, Christian, what's up, man? Good to have you here as always. Christian, you'll have a sticker headed your way, maybe some other good stuff as well. But anyways, with the Glock performance trigger, they fixed some of the Timney issues. Now, Glock they changed the packaging somewhat, and they now rate it as a 4-pound trigger instead of, hey, what's up, Angel? Good to have you here. The man who came up with Trigger Jedi. You too. I got you something coming. All right. Demo Joe 97. Good to have you here. It's Sunday, and I hope everybody had a good weekend. I know the temperature here actually dropped quite a bit. It's Louisiana. I was seeing about mid 80s yesterday, and today it's like 60. So that's quite a drop. That means you don't hear the air conditioner going on in the background. So it's good. We've got good audio for the weekend for this stream. Back to the Glock performance trigger. Like I said, they changed up the packaging. I think there were just the other thing that they changed up is they have a little guide for oiling the trigger, which kind of self-explanatory, but I'm sure with the added metal parts inside there. This is a good little this is a good little thing because it's still a prevalent myth that Glocks don't need oiling or lubrication, and you get a lot of ruined parts because of this. So this was a good little thing that they put in there. It also says to ensure optimal performance, Glock recommends lubrication using quality CLP oil or equivalent prior to first use and before and after each subsequent use of the Glock performance trigger. So they're actually saying with this Glock performance trigger, you need to oil it all the time. Not a bad, this is a good little thing to for them to put out with each Glock performance trigger, especially with it being more metallic parts. So you know, good job on them. And did I notice any differences with the new Glock performance trigger and the new package? No, it's the same Glock performance trigger. They just changed the package, threw in that little extra piece of material for oiling, which makes sense. That's probably why we saw them off the market for a little while. I'm sure there were some issues that came up with people not knowing what they were doing, which kind of brings me along to what I've seen in my time building triggers. When I first started out, I just took it for granted that people were oiling their triggers before they installed them or after they installed them. But I ran into a very large number of people that were just throwing their triggers in dry firing them, taking the range, and the next thing, if they actually dry firing, if they had just taken it to the range, that probably would have been fine because the especially if they were using cheap ammunition, that extra carbon would get in there and act as a lubricant. But they would dry fire the crap out of them, and all of a sudden the break would go from the 3 pounds, 3.5 pounds to 7 pounds, 9 pounds, 12 pounds, and they're hitting me up. What in the world's going on? Well, it took me a few instances of this occurring to figure out what was going on. People were not oiling their triggers. They're just dropping them in, getting excited, and scratching the connector or the trigger bar. Normally, it's the connector that gets scratched. Let's see. I got a trigger here. Basically, what was happening was right here where the trigger bar rides on the connector, it gets a scratch. It'll be a tiny little scratch, a little burr, and that will basically take the trigger and it'll ramp up that break to an extra 4 or 5 pounds because it gets a scratch in it. Not as often do you see it with the trigger bar. I've found it more often than not, it's actually the connector when that happens. So I would have to send out a new connector. I would warranty it, get them taken care of. The other thing is some of the earlier ones came with, and actually later, now the Peacemaker 3035s would come with a Ghost Edge connector, Edge 3.5. Well, we could just warranty it through Ghost, and they would one for one it, which was a nice thing on my end. Just the fact that I didn't have to eat all of that cost. So what I did quickly thereafter was just pre-lubricate all of my triggers as they got sent out, and that dropped it way down, almost to zero. It still happens on occasion where somebody will uh, clean the trigger off before they install it. I've seen that happen. I've had people ask, well, what's that green stuff on your trigger? It's lubrication. Leave it on. Leave it alone. Don't wipe it off. Um, so that's a big one. So and bringing it back around. If you have a trigger that is working fine, but then all of a sudden starts becoming extremely stiff or one moment it's 3 pounds, the next moment it's 7, the next moment it's 3, the next moment it's 7, 8, and it jumps, becomes very stiff. That's the first place to look, is your connector. Have an extra connector. I always say, have at least one set of factory Glock parts for your generation. This way, at the very least, you can do some sort of troubleshooting. And like I said, if that trigger starts for some reason ramping up in poundage, that's what she said. Too much office. Um, swap out the connector. Throw another connector in there, oil it, throw some badger snot on there on the website. Throw, make sure it's lubricated, put another connector in there and see if the problem persists. Now, granted, depending on what your system is, that connector may be heavier, but you're still going to get more consistency by just throwing another connector in there versus one that's got a scratch. Now, one that has a scratch, can it be saved? Most oftentimes, unless you have, let's say, a Dremel and some really good high quality polish, not flits, not mothers, but like a mirror glaze or something that actually has some grit in it. Normally, you can't save it. If you're just going to hand polish it, you just throw it away and get another connector. But if you have a good polishing setup, you can save it. Depends on money wise what you want to do. Sometimes they can be saved, sometimes not. Most oftentimes, I just replace the connector. If it is on one of my trigger systems, get a hold of me. We'll get you taken care of, because it does happen. There are occasions when something bad does happen, or you get some extra crap in there and it gets scratched up, and that starts to happen. We'll troubleshoot it. We'll get you figured out. But with somebody else's trigger system, I can't speak for them. And that is, like I said, the reason why mine come with badger snot on them, something you don't see from any of the others. And I get why they don't put it on there. At the same time, the type of return percentages that dropped when I did that was just crazy. I would see a lot of scratch connectors because people just get excited and drop that trigger in there. Another one that I see quite often is people putting the triggers together, dropping them in, or they're already assembled in the box and they go to put it in and they will dislodge the trigger return spring or the trigger spring. Because if that spring, this is a generation 5, and generation 5s are also, I have a video on this, are notorious. If they're taking it out of the box and they remove the trigger bar from the housing, a lot of times people will just set that trigger bar on top of the trigger spring. Well, if you've seen the video or have ever had this happen, sometimes it will actually reset. But there's a lot of times it's just not going to reset, and people wonder why. Well, it's because you just did not verify that the trigger was in the trigger spring, or on generation 3 or daggers, shadow systems, that little hook that runs down on the trigger, if it's not vertical, if it's cockeyed at all and not sitting in that groove, which was a generation 3 improvement, late generation 3 improvement, there used to not be a groove to help hold that. It will not reset each and every time. Sometimes it will, a lot of times it won't. Another thing that I see a lot when people buy triggers or upgrade their triggers, they will basically replace the exact same connector that they already had with another variation of that same connector. And then the butt dyno, as we call it in the gun world, because in your brain, or in the car world, in your brain, when you've bought something that's supposed to be better than what you already have, you kind of have to justify that. And I see a lot of people put the exact same connector, just blow with a different logo on it, into a gun, and it's all of a sudden it's better. Well, that's justification in your brain. I see it a lot with 3.5 pound connectors because there's really truly only three different variations, and it's just they're all basically the same. Minor variations. Another thing that I see a lot is trigger shoes, where somebody will put a flat trigger shoe in place of a curved trigger shoe, a factory trigger shoe, and they'll start talking about how the reset is 1,000 times better and it breaks cleaner. Again, this comes down to butt dyno. With a flat trigger shoe, what that allows you more than anything else, yes, it normally feels a bit lighter. That is because leverage wise, your finger can, instead of with a fully curved shoe, your finger nests right about in the middle. Okay. With a flat trigger shoe, you're actually able to move your finger down lower on the trigger, which gives you more leverage, minutely so, but enough that it is noticeable, usually a few ounces. That's not stupidity. That's just the way that leverage works. But as for how crisp the trigger is, if all you're doing is replacing the trigger shoe, now minutely, this could change your cruciform to striker lug interface, depending on the trigger shoe design, because there are minute differences in where the pins are located on some triggers, which is going to change how the trigger bar sits in the gun. So minutely, this could make it a little bit crisper, but or change characteristics. But most often, what I find is because they've taken it apart, they've cleaned things, maybe thrown some polish on there, and hopefully thrown some oil on there, lubricant of some sort. And so, with their brain, the butt dyno effect comes in, and it feels better. Probably just because you cleaned it and oiled it when you put it back together. That's most of it. Polishing the 25-cent trigger job. It's probably you spent more than 25 cents depending on how you value your time, especially if you've done it by hand. That flitz or that mother's polish, it looks shiny. And with the advent of aftermarket trigger bars that are polished from the factory, it's not that much shinier. You're really not gaining anything, and it does come back to you've disassembled your trigger, especially if it's a brand new Glock that's got the factory, uh, the factory lubricant on it, which is to help actually. It's a lubricant, but it's also it has features on it that will actually allow the parts to fit better eventually after so many shots. But you've taken that apart, you've thrown your flitz polish on it, it's shiny, mentally it's better, you put it back in, you oil everything with a better, higher quality lubricant, and it feels lighter. Well, isn't that funny? That 25-cent trigger job, depending on how long it took you, let's say it took you an hour, that definitely costs more than 25 cents. I value my time pretty highly, so that hour, let's call it, that's $100 trigger job. I value my time. I do value that weird copper stuff. Yes, embalmed. That is to help fit things. It is a lubricant, but it also it's a metallic lubricant as well. That's that copper in there. That's to help everything kind of fit eventually. So let's say you spent, well, okay, you make $12 an hour. Well, you spent the $10 or $12 on the polish. You spent the hour polishing it all up by hand, maybe longer, and then reassembly. Uh, Stream delay? Yeah, and also I don't have the best connection of all time, to be completely honest. It's it's getting worse. My connection out here in the shop is getting worse. I don't know if it's my actual router or if it's my little extender. I don't know. It's been giving my phone trouble when I'm out around the property as well. So if the delay sucks, I do apologize. Anyways, so you've spent anywhere from 30 to $100 on your 25-cent trigger job, and you're truly not gaining anything. The poly the only places that actually make a difference are the working surfaces. And most of the time, your hand polishing does almost nothing to it. Now, if you're using a true metal polish that has grit in it, that's actually minutely removing material, yes. Now, those working surfaces are your trigger bar, this back here that rubs against the connector, that the end of your cruciform that interfaces with the connector, and then the vertical extension that interfaces with the safety plunger. The other parts would be the connector, where it interfaces with the trigger shoe or trigger bar. Also, the tab that rides on the disconnector ramp or cam in the slide. Then, of course, the face of the connector itself that rides on the trigger bar. Those are your working surfaces. Now, a little bit of polish, hand polish, is going to make almost zero difference. Now, a true polish and true working of that metal in that area can make a difference. It's not going to make a huge difference, but it can make a little bit of a difference. And by hand, it's definitely going to take more than an hour. By machine, not going to, it could be relatively quickly, but that's where that 25-cent trigger job almost becomes not worth it when you can go ahead and get a hold of an aftermarket trigger for, let's say, one of my systems. Right now, the Peacemaker 4.0 is $150. Well, now you're looking at a high quality trigger shoe. You're looking at trigger components that have the working surfaces already polished in a system that is put together with badger snot. It's all ready to go for a little bit more than that 25-cent trigger job with actual benefits and results. But that's me trying to sell something. And why for me the 25-cent trigger job just isn't worth it. And I see people freaking out over the 25-cent trigger job. The other thing that I really see is this thing where I see it time and time again is don't remove any material whatsoever. Don't remove any material. Don't remove any material. Well, most of these people are they're not removing any material with their 25-cent trigger job. And the material that might get removed, let's say off the cruciform, what you need to do at that point, if you do remove some material or do a good job or any job whatsoever, is verify that you have the proper cruciform to striker lug interface. You can use my video to help you learn how to do that. You do need to do all of your safety checks. If you're going to do any sort of removal and replacing of a trigger, do the safety check. Learn how to do the safety check, which is also going to show you how to do function checks. All of that stuff, if you are going to get into working on your Glock, even cleaning your Glock, you might as well learn that. It's relatively simple. That is the beauty of a Glock in and of itself, is just how simple it really is to work on, to troubleshoot, to fix, to build. So you might as well take the time, learn the Glock system, figure it out. And that way, when it comes to any sort of issues or replacement, you're already there. You're ahead of anybody else. Of course, it's like having a truck. If you know how to work on a Glock, having a truck similar deal. If somebody wants to move or somebody has a Glock problem, they're going to come to you and expect you to fix it for free. So, I mean, I guess ignorance can be bliss in and of itself. Um, these are just a couple different things I've seen that with a little bit of knowledge could keep people from having problems or having to go through 1,000 different triggers, uh, to just be able to tune it right from the outset. Tangent. Got off on a tangent. The other, what else is coming up? PSA released the micro Dagger slide. Just the slide. They haven't released the frame yet, and I know that's coming. I know people are extremely excited about that. I'm looking forward to it. Excuse me. The compact market or the subcompact market is a big one. I know with like say the Shadow CR920, the P365, all of that sort of thing. There's definitely a big market for those. The micro Dagger I foresee being an extremely big seller. I also foresee, just like the Shadow systems, which has a horrendous trigger right out of the box, I think that's what we're going to see with the micro Dagger as well. Now, that's not doom or gloom. I could be wrong, but from what I understand, it's probably going to be not so great trigger wise. But I also foresee that, like the 43 triggers that I build, I should be able to build something extremely good for it. This is probably going to come down to the patents that surround the 43 models. That's why Shadow Systems has their hybrid trigger and a couple other things. That's why they are the way they are. Now, I think Shadow still could have done a little bit better on their triggers. Yes, the micro Dagger will be like a 43X. And it should share components with the 43X series. They've got their own proprietary magazine that is coming out. It'll be a hybrid of a polymer and steel magazine. I've seen one in testing. It will be different than the Shield Arms magazine. They're doing their own proprietary version, which should, from what I understand, actually work in the 43s. We'll see, or the 43X. I am waiting on a frame. I don't have an inside track on the frame. I'm pretty much waiting like everybody else. So as soon as I get my hands on one, I will give you guys the information that I have. Like I said, the 43 slide, the micro Dagger slides released. They haven't released the frame or the entire guns yet. I'm hearing June, which means June's coming up. We're in April now. May's coming up, so June, summertime. We'll see. But I really feel like, and from what I'm being told, is just like the Shadow. If you're wanting it to have a good trigger, you're gonna want to rely on an aftermarket trigger. And the thing about aftermarket 43 triggers is they kind of all suck unless you go with, and don't, I'm not trying to toot my own horn. There's a true reason I say this. Aftermarket 43 triggers all kind of suck. I found this out through my own experience with the 43s, because early on in Tactical Pontoon's history is when the 43X and 48 launched. Okay. And before that time, I didn't get a lot of 43 triggers requests for those, but as soon as those launched, it was on. And so while I had a 43 in the shop, it wasn't something that I spent a lot of time on. When the 43X and 48 launched, that's when I decided it was time to really get in and cut my teeth on the system, figure it out, because everything else that I had seen so far was same old, same old. You had Ghost, Lone Wolf, and some cheap aftermarket Chinese connectors, which is normally the go-to. Throw a connector in it, and it improves it. Well, the aftermarket connectors were all crap. They would lower the trigger by maybe half a pound, and it was just extremely it would get rid of the wall. The thing about the 43 series that I always found relatively nice was they do have a relatively good clean break. They come up to the wall and then they break really nice, but they're heavy and the reset is just horrendous. So instead of just a connector swap, um, I knew there had to be more into it. Looking at what other companies would release for the 43, it was just a flat trigger, aftermarket, so junk connector, and a polished trigger bar. I think the only people that actually went out of their way to do any more was agency, and they did that for safety reasons. They would scallop the vertical extension so that you would not rub against the safety plunger. So obviously, I had to get in there and figure out how could I put out a trigger for the Slimline series that I could be proud of, that I could put my name on. It's a different system. There's not a lot of room in there. It's different than your generation fives. So I got in there, figured out what worked, and now with Tactical Pontoon, you have the only aftermarket trigger system that is truly worthy. And I know that sounds like I'm just tooting my own horn, but there is a reason. I went in and I did the work. It is different than anything else. Anybody who shot a 43X or 43 CR920 with the Tactical Pontoon trigger system, there is a difference. You get the same good crisp break, but instead of the 6.5 pound or 7 pound trigger system, what's up, Shane? Instead, or the CR920, which has like a 7.5, 8 pound break, you get a trigger break that is still clean and crisp, but you're looking at 4 pounds, 4.5 pounds, and a reset that is 70% shorter. It is a quick, almost what I consider a competition style reset. And if you've ever played with a 43, you know what I'm talking about. Their resets are extremely long. It has to do with the geometry of the trigger bars that they put in them. It's just the way it is. Now, what I do is I go in and I change part of that geometry. I use factory connectors. I don't use any aftermarket connectors. I've not found one that I liked. I've played with them all. I use factory connectors, but I get the results that I want with the modifications that I do. It doesn't have to do with the trigger shoe. Trigger shoes are nice. We talked about those a moment ago. It really comes down to leverage and then overall quality of the trigger shoe itself. Um, but the modifications I do, nobody else does, because I'm a small company that cares. I'm a dude. When I say small company, it's one dude in here grinding away on trigger bars. Matt, you didn't get the micro dagger frame. I must have sent it to, yeah, Matt, PSA. They didn't send me one. I'm waiting. However, if I could get on some sort of fast track, if I could get on a YouTube influencer package to get the micro dagger frame early, that would be great. Not to do a video, but obviously to fix the wrongs with the trigger system, or at least just take a look at it. But we'll see. Matt. I'll hit you up, but I don't expect to be on any sort of fast train. I know the demand for those things is going to be through the roof. So when I get one, I'll get one, and I will let you guys know how it performs and how we can fix it. But again, slimline triggers, there's a reason why Tactical Pontoon has a difference. There is a true reason. My triggers are, you know, it's not just me tooting my own horn. I've played with the others. I didn't have a recall like Apex did with their aftermarket trigger bar. And the aftermarket trigger bars that I have seen for the 43X have interesting qualities, but there are certain frame combinations that they just don't work on. They literally, I've run it, because for a very short period of time, I I bought um, several different aftermarket trigger bars for the Glock 43 to try to supplement, because it still is like going into back alleys and black market fighting for trigger bars for the 43. They're still not as available as they should be. I tried out some aftermarket trigger bars, and while initial impressions were good, I would run into reset issues on certain combinations that just was obviously unacceptable. And it does come down to the way that their geometry is on the trigger bar where it contacts the connectors. On some, it just sits down too low where no matter what you do, you can't adjust enough cruciform interface where you can get too much cruciform interface for the brake, and when it goes to reset, it'll just barely grab it. It was a nightmare combination that aftermarket Glock 43 trigger bars, they're just not ready yet. So that's just what I figured out. Factory trigger bars are the way to go with the Glock 43, and we saw Apex get bit with that. That's why they had their 43 trigger recall a while back. Uh, Desert Tactical, that micro dagger frame is going to be a hot one. Probably going to be hard to get upon its release. Yeah, most likely. I'm I'm gonna see. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna get my good friend Matt to try to get me in there on one. But again, if not, I'll wait. I'm still actually I need to get a hold of a Generation 5 Glock 20 or Glock 21. The local shop hasn't had one, and I will be honest, I haven't searched high and low for one yet, but I do need to get a hold of one of those to kind of verify where they are on their trigger system. But again, I don't build near as many Glock 45 or 45 caliber 10 millimeter triggers as I do 9 millimeter slim lines and that sort of thing. So yeah. So the micro dagger, we'll take a look at it when it comes when I can finally get my hands on one, and I'll build the best damn trigger system that I can for it. And I know it sounded like I was tooting my horn on the Glock 43, but I am extremely proud of those systems. Those triggers, they're not great from the factory. They're truly not great from the factory. But when I'm done with them, they really are. I know you can buy over travel stops for the Glock 43 trigger block housing on my systems. I don't use those. One, I build my Glock 43 or slimline triggers for carry use, and to try to keep them simple, I don't put uh, adjustable over travel stops because I found that they really don't need them. With the modifications I do, you're not going to need an over travel stop to try and slow down the travel and get a quicker reset. With my modifications, you don't need that. So with and it's the beauty of it with my Glock 43 trigger systems, CR920, 43X, 48, eventually micro, they're pretty much drop in. Drop in, do your safety function checks, and you're good to go. No over travel stops and that sort of thing with an extremely quick reset. They're beautiful. One Embalm says, I wonder if PSA could be persuaded to name the micro dagger to it's a good size dagger or the right size dagger. We call it the pocket knife. What do you think, Matt? Call it the pocket knife? No? Night and day difference with Trigger Systems OEM. Hey, well, thank you, Shane. It really is. It is night and day. Anybody who shot a 43 and then a 43 with one of my triggers, um, they're saving for another. They're saving for one for themselves. That's just that's what's happened. And the other thing is with Leonidas. Anybody who shot a Leonidas, I warn people, if you buy a Leonidas and you have a lot of Glocks, be careful because you're gonna want a Leonidas in each and every one, and the Leonidas takes a lot of work. It's not cheap, and I only build so many of them a month. I'm actually almost backed up on the Leonidas. I'm right there. I almost took in too many orders, but I'm gonna get it knocked out this month. Um, so yeah, you got to be careful if you want to go. If you have a fleet of Glocks and you buy one of my triggers, then most likely you're going to end up with an entire fleet with my triggers. And drop-ins are great. They're reasonably priced. Right now, today, it ends tomorrow. There's an extremely good sale on the Peacemaker 4.0 and the TWP 4.0 systems. They're $150 right now. But if you put two in the cart with code twinning, TWINNING, you get two trigger systems for $260. I mean, I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't even bring this up on the video because I've got a load of them to do and I'm actually waiting on resupply on trigger shoes, but that's a hell of a sale. Normally those triggers are $165 a piece, but you're getting two for $260. It's stupid. It's just anyways. Embalm says, I have a list with too many guns on it. I regret not getting a 17 5 years ago. A Glock 17 was my first Glock. That's how I got started in this. I picked up a Glock. I heard about how bad the triggers were. Wasn't terrible, but I modify things. I'm a tinkerer, and I started down the path of buying different triggers. I heard about this, I heard about that. I would watch videos, and I spent a lot of money on Glock triggers and was never happy. I ended up with a trigger that was extremely mushy. It was like 3 pounds. It was very unpredictable. And I bought different trigger shoes. I bought different connectors. I ran into binary fire. I ran into just so many different issues. And after spending a ton of money, I'm like, why can I not find what I love? Why can I just what's going on? So I decided to stop spending money and start looking at how these things actually worked and how I can build something better. Next thing I know, I'm building for other people because the triggers work really well. And here I am today. 43X, Shane, your first one was 43X, then the 48 MOS. And you've got the 34 getting the TacticalPontoon 005. Yes, you're going to have the 34, the last of the TacticalPontoon builds, the 34. Yes. Awesome build. I cannot wait to see pictures of that thing when it's done. I really cannot. G19 Generation 4, your first gun and your first Glock. That's awesome. Generation 4. That's a heck of a way to start out. Mine was a Generation 3 Glock 17. I still have it. It was the very first test frame for all of my Generation 3 triggers. I've since relegated it to kind of a case. I'm waiting. I did some framework to it. I didn't completely ruin it. Did not completely ruin it. Somebody will get a chance to stipple that frame, do some work on it. The original slide was sent off to Boogeyman Customs, my first aftermarket slide milling was done by Boogeyman Customs. Way back, he was actually running a sale for, and this was before I was doing triggers. It was a Black Friday sale, and it's the Voodoo slide. It has a Venom Vortex. It was a Viper. I don't even have the red dot anymore, but it was cut for a red dot. It was my first red dot. I bought a used Viper. I think it was a Viper. One of those two. I don't even have it anymore. So it's got the slide plate or the optics plate on it now. I regret obviously going with that optic. It was a terrible optic. But I'm going to revitalize that gun. It will get a video here on the channel as it changes into its final form, and basically will be a showpiece that it will probably get a case, because that is the gun that started it all. The Glock 17 Generation 3. That's how I got into this. Did you guys see the video I did earlier this week on the Tactical Pontoon 001 19X that I did in collaboration with United Research and Development? Beautiful, beautiful gun, beautiful 19X. I have wanted a 19X for a long time, ever since they released, but I never did it. And then when this collaboration came up, I had to have the first one. Definitely had to have that. Desert Tactical, I stepped into Generations 3 with the first Dagger. Now you're 5 builds in and I need to stop. It never ends. You will never stop. But that's okay. One of these days I'll get a full trigger system in one of your builds. Maybe on a video. That would be cool. Maybe have you on the channel. Maybe like I said, maybe have you on a channel one of these days, kind of get your background and just kind of talk back and forth. That's always fun. I mean to have more guests than I end up having. Schedule gets kind of funky. People get busy. So I can't plan, I can't promise a whole bunch of people, but it is happening. I should have Brandon back on from Disruptive Defense. I do need to get Mike from, I guess now it's Gideon Optics. They've started to release some of their products. He was with Swamp Fox, really knowledgeable guy, and maybe we'll get some insight in the optics industry, which seems to be kind of blowing up with new options. Used to be, it was only Trijicon that you wanted to put on your Glock. Different options. My first Hollison here in the shop with that 19X. I'm really liking that. I'm really liking that red dot, the way it mounts. And just the other day, because I didn't read the instructions, I found out that I could get rid of the target reticle and just go to a regular dot, which with my astigmatism is a better option. The round target dot just was a massive blur, but with just a single dot, very usable. So anyways, read the instructions. So yeah, that's kind of what we got going on. That's kind of about it for this week. Does anybody have any additional questions, anything they want to bring up before we sign off for tonight, for this week? Excuse me. I plan on doing another video of one of the builds. That would be the Unicorn Customs. The Unicorn Customs SCT build. We'll do a tabletop on that. I still have the Glock 43 video because I do want to show you guys, it sounded like I tooted my own horn about the slim lines, but I want to show you some stuff about Glock 43s and why my system is different. Okay. And Desert Tac, what do you got? What do you got, sir? What's up, Dave? I know I still got a trigger for you. That Generation 3. I will save one for you. What's up? Yeah, I guess there is a little bit of a delay. While I'm waiting for Dave's question, what was the other video? Oh, trigger shoes. So, live free armory slide for a budget build. Okay, live free armory LFA, decent slide, not too bad. I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there's part of a question. Live free armory generation 3. I don't know a whole bunch about them, to be completely honest. I believe LFA, they did an aluminum frame Glock there for a while, as I recall. It may be a different one. Spare barrel I use my first dagger. Slide cracked. Oh, yeah. I have seen, I know, yeah, send me pics when you get a chance. I know I've seen a lot of rock slide. Man, I've seen some cracks happen with those, just like crazy. There, I still every once in a while I see them pop up. Yeah, I tend to stay away from kind of your bottom of the barrel budget. Even Grey Ghost, who used to have an extremely good reputation. They're big in the AR world, but over time I've seen their slides go down in price and quality. So I kind of stick with the people that I know. I that I've had good luck with. Safiri, Steel City Arsenal, their 9x19, obviously Boogeyman Customs, uh, who else? Marconi Armory. They've come out. I've really liked their slide. Who else do we have here in the shop? No, that's pretty much it. I've kind of stuck with the people that I trust and know. There are a lot of bottom, not bottom, but budget slides out there, kind of iffy on quality, especially when you start adding a ton of windows to these slides and you see some extreme cuts. Well, I mean, if they're not done right or the metallurgy's not up to par, cracks are going to happen. So, yeah, embalmed Zafiri Precision. I've had really good luck with them since we were both brand new, both Zafiri and I. Boogeyman Customs. A lot of times you're going to send in your slide to have them done. Steel City Arsenal, they're extremely high quality. Had really good luck with them. 9x19, which is an offshoot of Steel City Arsenal. Both of those really good really good quality. It can't be the barrel. It ran fine on multiple daggers. The moment I ran that barrel on the LFA slide, the slide cracked and the barrel got beat to shit. What might have happened is, depending on the lockup of that barrel, if let's say the barrel was loose in the slide itself, you can cause cracks, or if it was actually too tight when everything went to slide back into place, it can also cause a crack. So I'd be interested to see what actually happened. So anyways, yeah, send me some pictures. As it is, I'm going to wrap it up for today, and I will meet you guys back here next week, approximately same time. Might change. I'll try to have an announcement or a scheduled stream beforehand so you guys get an idea. And I can't guarantee that I will meet that time. It may be early, it may be late. We will see. But yeah. All right, guys. If you need anything, you can obviously leave a comment. You can shoot me a message. Let's say Instagram tactical_pontoon on Instagram. There's tacticalpontoon.com. You can send me an email through one of the links there, or my email tacticalpontoon@gmail.com. So, okay. Live Free issued you a refund, but you're out of barrel. Fortunately, barrels have come down in price, but still, it does suck to have that whole thing just go kaput. That does suck. At least you weren't hurt. At the very least, there is that. All right, guys. I will catch you next time. We'll do it again. And, like I said, I should have at least another video on one of the builds out here very soon. Alright, guys. Thank you.